Okay, so let's talk about Infinity Pool, one of the movies that I was most anticipated ever since we saw that first trailer. So we actually just got back from Sundance and we caught this at the midnight screening. So we saw Mia Goth, Alexander Skarsgard, Brandon Cronenberg, Cleopatra, Coleman, and the rest of the cast. We actually will have some clips that we were able to get from the press line, so you'll be checking those out later this week. But overall, this was a movie that, as I said, I was excited for. Alexander Skarsgård, Mia Goth had just an incredible year last year, and Brandon Cronenberg was back with his movie Infinity Pool, and he actually had a movie prior called Possessor at 2020 Sundance. Apparently, he had been working on this movie even before Possessor, as he had written out the short story for it, and then he eventually made it into the feature it is today. Now, the question today is, does it live up to the hype that it's been getting? How is Mia Goth? How's Alexander Skarsgård? How's the story overall? That's what we're going to discuss here. So before we get any further into that, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell. We don't have any spoilers, so don't worry. We will do an any explain with spoilers if you want the spoilers later today as well. So check that out. And make sure you check out our slasher horror film we are trying to fund right now. It is on the Indiegogo link below, but let's get into this. So this movie basically takes a author named James who is trying to find inspiration after not having written for over 6 years, and he goes to this resort with his wife Em, who comes from money, and so that's how he's basically being like kept up, as he says even in the movie. During this whole process of trying to find himself at this resort, he encounters a woman named Gabby, who is apparently a big fan of his, who invites him out to dinner with her husband, and of course Em is tagging along. This is where things start to get very dark and very disturbing really quick. I won't go into any further details, as I think it's best to go into this with a fresh mind. I will say warnings, however, there is a lot of strobe light in this movie, so if you are sensitive to that, keep that in mind. And there is also a very explicit couple of scenes in this movie that dive into everything from violence to also a lot of nudity, so keep that in mind as well if you are planning to see this movie. But let's get into my thoughts and opinions on it. So I think that overall the story was very interesting. The ideas and premises that were brought up by Brandon Cronenberg were very interesting in my opinion. And one thing I will say is, from the movie standpoint, I wish he would have explored those a little bit deeper than what we got. It felt very surface level. I really wanted to get more deeper into some of these questions that were being asked about these premises and ideas that he brought up himself. But at the end of the day, I feel like everything else brings it together, which I'll get to in a bit. Acting wise, I think Skarsgård and Goth are very excellent in this. I think they very much so are like helping me get away from the sort of like things that I had a little hesitation about liking or not, just because of their performances were overall well. I think Goth, coming from such an amazing year like she had with Pearl and X, and into this new character Gabby, which I think is her darkest character yet. She is at her most terrifying, like I said before, and I think she is definitely like oozing this very, very great presence with this character that you are terrified of as you see her act. Like, you just know that this character, if you were to ever meet them in person or everything, they would bring you down, but also has this duality to them that they are able to put on this mask back on to be this other person that doesn't feel like the dark, sinister, wicked person that Gabby truly is. And Mia Goth actually in interviews talked about how her character of Gabby really, as the story progresses, has this animalistic instinct to her that just fleshes itself more and more. And this is definitely what I think the movie is all about. Alexander Skarsgård is great here. He has these sequences, especially towards the end, that really made me believe that Skarsgård can do anything at this point. This range that he has of playing this character called James that is very cool and collective at the beginning, but by the end of it, he is just out of his mind. It was such a great thing to see, and I really enjoyed it for that. Like I said, this movie deals with a lot of wearing a fake mask, trying to sort of like these wicked people trying to hide who they really are. But I think at its core, the movie really having that message was great. I will get further and elaborate more on that in the spoiler review and the explains, because I don't want to give any spoilers here. But like I said, the story was the only problem I had with this movie. I felt like the way we were building up this story, and then at the little bit after the halfway point, we got kind of lost in what we were trying to do with it. But at the end of the day, when I realized and think more about the movie, it does definitely feel more like a character study on James. I can kind of give it a little bit of room to just go in that direction and forget the story, and that's just because of the great acting as well that's involved here from Mia Goth and Alexander Skarsgård and everybody else involved, because there's other characters in here that don't really get much of a spotlight as I would have wanted as well. That was another thing. I wanted to get to know these characters a little bit more, but if I see it as a Alexander Skarsgård's character, James's character study, movie, I can totally dig this movie overall. Like I said, Brandon Cronenberg here delivers some very interesting ideas and premises that I think a lot of filmmakers in the future will definitely pick apart here and use in their own stuff, because there is definitely a lot to explore with this world. Overall, like I said, I wish we got a little bit more time with it. I think there were some things that could have been like sort of dialed down in order to give us more story, but visual wise it was definitely one that was to be seen. There was a ton of very interesting animation mixed in with real life and colors and lights and all of that. Like I said, there's a lot of strobing lights here, so if you're sensitive to that, take that into consideration. And like I said, a ton of explicit stuff. I don't know how much will be cut, because I did watch the unrated cut at Sundance. I don't know if the R-rated cut is going to be as intense as the unrated cut, but we'll see. So yeah, take that into consideration, the strobing lights. Also, I will say that there is some sequences in here that are very violent, so just take that into note. I like to give people heads up when it comes to my reviews, because I saw a lot of very squeamish people at Sundance, so I can definitely tell that this one's going to have a lot of people on the edge of their seat and looking away for sure. So overall, like I said, I think the story was the weakest part here, but like I said, the cinematography, the visuals, the acting, the score, the direction were incredible, and I'm excited to see what comes next from Cronenberg, because I think he definitely is delivering some very provocative and like amazing work here. So we'll see what happens, but I would definitely say, if you are a fan of Possessor, if you're a fan of Goth Skarsgard, check it out in theaters if you can. But also take into consideration it is very explicit, and also the strobe lights might be a thing that some people will be affected by. So I don't want people to go into it and have these problems. So that's why I'll let you know. But I'm excited to check it out one more time. I will be having a meaning video on it, as well as an ending explained, going more in depth into some of the themes here that were explored, because I think there's a lot of meaning here, and I do want to get into it and dissect it all. So stay tuned for those videos. I probably will have the end explained tonight, and then I'll have a deeper dive into the meanings and some of the symbolism as well in this movie coming out maybe tomorrow. So got a ton of stuff planned for y'all, and more Sundance stuff as well. Some of the interviews and some of the clips from the premiere, red carpet, whatever you want to call it, I will have those up as well tomorrow. So very excited to get into all of this. But we checked out about 30 films overall at Sundance, so we will be covering them all. So very, very excited to bring all of this content to you. But like I said, if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. Make sure you hit that notification bell. If you've watched Infinity Pool, let me know what you thought about it. Did you hate it? Did you love it? This is definitely going to be one that's going to be polarizing, and I don't blame anybody for feeling one way or another about it, because there is definitely a like split down the middle for this movie, where you're going to love it and you're going to hate it, and I definitely know what that middle part will be. So I can't wait to hear the discourse surrounding this film and see how people take in this new character of Mia Goth's Gavi, because I think that Gavi is going to be iconic, but definitely the most terrifying and dark character she's ever played. So excited to hear that conversation happen. But like I said, definitely check us out on all the other social medias, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all that good stuff. And as always, that is going to do it for me. I appreciate anybody who listened. Check out our Indiegogo if you haven't already. Like I said, we are funding our horror film. Make sure you're subscribed, notification bell on. But as always, stay safe, stay positive.